Okay, well, let's get going then, if that's okay. So, welcome to the podcast, and Happy New Year. If it's the first time you've heard us this year, it's kind of good to reconnect with you all. This is a special episode of the podcast, one that we do on a kind of ad hoc, informal basis, where myself and my two partners in crime, Christy from CC, and also Fernando Mateus Gonzalez from Bioblogia. Welcome both. We tend to kind of get together, have a bit of a catch up, but then also talk about a theme or a topic that's of interest to us and people aspiring to or already working in conservation. And today's theme's, I think, a really important one and probably a good time of the year to be discussing it as well. It's burnout, and it's about well-being and about looking after ourselves. And I think as we kind of come into the new year, I personally find January and February like a crappy time of the year. In the Northern Hemisphere, and Christy does the right thing. She flies down to Rio, Brazil, and gets some sun at this time of the year. But in the Northern Hemisphere, it starts to get dark, and Christmas is out of the way, and spring feels like a long time away. And if people are going to struggle a little bit, now is the time that people might feel that. So yes, it feels quite timely. Um, so we're going to dig into the topic a little bit. We're going to maybe describe some of the kind of symptoms or signs that perhaps we've seen in our careers and our lives, and some of the things we might have done to tackle it as well. I guess from the off, it's worth us saying we're not kind of mental health professionals. We're just sharing our own personal views and experiences in this. But hopefully, you'll find some of them insightful and useful, and we'll just have a bit of a kind of honest, flowing conversation around it. Yeah. And where to start? We talked a little bit before we started recording a proper, like where to start. And I mean, Nando, you're the obvious place to start because, yeah, we've been working together now for a number of years, as with Christy as well. Like the three of us have known each other now for 5, 6, 7 years, something like that. We've all had busy periods and quiet periods, and particularly last year, Nando, it felt like things came to a head for you that you were so busy, you consciously took a step back. You were feeling a little bit burnt out. So maybe we could kind of start with your story, if that's okay, of last year and now reflecting with a little bit of distance and hindsight, how do you feel about it? Like, what in terms of what happened? So talk us through like last year and, what happened.
And even before that, but yeah, first, Happy New Year to everyone. Feliz Año Nuevo. It's been a long time
Yeah.
since we were the three of us together. So yeah, it was, and yeah, part of the reason was that I took almost a full-on reset. That I think my previous similar reset was maybe 2017 or so, when I changed from academia into some mix of adventure and heading back into conservation. Actually, it was when I moved here to the Czech Republic, at least half of the time, and I was going on adventures and expeditions. And then little by little, I started getting more and more in here and more projects in the Czech Republic and Central Europe. And then came the pandemic. And then I think that's when when you throw the frog into the pot, as you were saying before, Nick. Yeah. I think then I started getting more and more online projects and remote jobs, and I started, as we say, we enjoy what we do, and it's very easy to keep on getting new projects, new missions, new jobs, and it's all fun and it's all nice. And with the years, you get more confident doing that because you gain a lot of capacity. I would say, like you find more ways to do more things at the same time. You have been trained to during the PhD, I'm sure you remember, Nick, doing many projects at the same time in case one of them fails and things like that. So your brain gets wired to get many projects and many plates running on the sticks at the same time. And being at home and not going so much to the field because, well, the COVID, then it was very easy to get more and more jobs. And there was a time, last year that I had maybe 4 half-time jobs, some full-time jobs, and then some other part-time jobs at the same time. And it became tough. And that's when we were chatting before, I think one of the key differences with other jobs is that perhaps you don't notice as much that you are working. You are doing what you like, you are doing what you love. I think there's some psychologists that divided this professional life into 3 levels, and then you have the jobs, and then you have career, and finally you have your mission, or your I don't know, it's like the thing you want to do in life. And I think we are very close to those two. We enjoy the career part, the advancement, the video game style of life, getting better and better, but also we have a true mission. And then it's very, very difficult to say no to things. You want to improve the environment or improve something around you. It's very difficult to say no and to such an adventure. And so for us, it's very difficult to notice when things are getting out of balance. And at some point, I reached this level. Like we have lots of papers to publish at the same time. It was the last part of many conservation projects where we have to write the reports, and probably it wasn't as much fun as going into the field and work with the animals, and then all those difficult things pile up and collide one with another. And then at some point I was kind of lucky enough that I managed to finish all those projects in time, and then at some point I ran out of projects. It was a lucky find. And even I was one of my jobs at the time, I was working with a startup, and we reached a moment where we sat down and we chat, and okay, maybe it's good for both of us and for everyone to separate and to stop this consultancy. And then I felt it at the moment that, for the first time, I'm over it. I finished. I don't have anything right now. I don't have a deadline. And it was then at that exact moment that I felt the relaxation. And then it's when I started noticing maybe I was over the border. I was over the level. And then I remember we were sharing screenshots of my heart rate measuring. I had one of those devices, and it was measuring my heart rate. And you could see up to July that I was over 65 or something like that, as an average, 65 beats per minute. And then it dropped significantly below 55 or below 50. I don't know. It was very, very low. And it was when I was cycling through Croatia and Bosnia on holidays, and you could really tell, okay, this was up to the day that this happened. The very same day I was extremely relaxed. And then we can chat now a bit about different effects or things I was measuring at the time. But yeah, it was shocking when you notice. And now since then I have been in a fun process of, okay, let's now choose carefully what I want to do next, and what did I enjoy the most from last period, and what I want to do next now. Yes, doing day by day. So yeah, we are in this process, but I have it very recent, this feeling, this playing with the burnout, so we can use it.
It's a good example, isn't it? Yeah, I didn't realize you didn't sort of consciously sort of choose to let projects go. It was something that almost happened naturally and organically, and it happened at the right time for you, like just sort of almost by chance.
Yeah. The only thing, I mean, yeah, all of the, I think one of the few things that I could control and just stop was actually conservation careers. When I send a frantic message saying I cannot do this week, and maybe it's better that I stop for next week, because there was a moment where I I had to carve every minute of my day to finish everything on time. This was the main problem, that we have many important deadlines to publish those papers, for example, and yeah, many things were happening that were, and perhaps this is important, they were things that I couldn't control. They were on the plate of other people, or depending on conditions, external conditions, and that's probably one of the biggest sources of stress that anyone can find. Not only in conservation, I guess. Yeah. These things that you can control, you cannot control, but are still impacting you. So I think, yeah, the little things I was doing in conservation careers, I had to stop urgently, and and thank you for your support at the moment, at the time.
No problem at all. Yeah, I think you've got to put your health and well-being first always, haven't you? So I'm glad it kind of, you did that, and you still kind of maintain some clarity like till now about, to kind of try and sort of keep things calm. What were like some of the kind of, looking back now, like, when you're in your busy times before, things quieten down, like what were some of the kind of symptoms that you were seeing that actually in hindsight, you could probably label as burnout now or something similar to that?
I think, well, I'm, I'm a scientist at heart also. So I think we have chat at times that I keep a log of several things I track in my life, not only in the professional life, but I don't know, when I wake up, when I go to bed, if I sleep well, how do I feel? And I've been tracking those things. And then you can see, I don't analyze much of it very often, especially not at that time. But it's a checkpoint, right? You wake up every morning, you write, fill in this sheet, this worksheet, and
I
then
love the fact that you do that. You've got a worksheet in your sleep and everything.
Yeah, there's always the hope that one day I will sit down and I open R and I start analyzing it. And I've done for a few things just for fun, but I still have this thing that I will create an app and I will organize it better. But the thing is, and this is probably a good recommendation, is that just tracking something, just writing something and keeping track of it, even not planning to do anything about it, but just looking at it makes you interiorize it and detect things. And of course, this, I don't know, days that you have taken a break, for example, was a very clear one. Like work. Where is the bike? I never I don't go out with the bike so often anymore. Or yes, this sleeping or doing something for fun on a weekend. I spend a lot of weeks and maybe even months at some point that maybe I had one day in a month a proper break, and that was easy to track. But also this especially how I slept and all those things I could really see and also notice. So these were some of the symptoms. I think it was like that. I think often when you look online for burnout, you find these many other symptoms. People that cannot get out of bed because it's too much, and they get blocked. And I think for us, I guess the advantage is that we want to do the job. We feel that is part of our lives, and it's probably more difficult to reach that point. So I wasn't feeling any of those symptoms. I was still enjoying the day to day, but I think the balance was getting very out of balance. It was going down the drain.
Yeah,
not there.
I love that you tracked it, because I think, I don't know if it goes this way for everyone, but I think something shifts slightly, like the sleep pattern shifts slightly, or the exercise shifts, or the work hours shift, but it kind of like just happens gradually, and we don't really notice that suddenly we've created a new normal, like a new definition of what's normal. Okay, it's normal to sleep X number of hours a night, and not remember that actually, 6 months ago or whatever, it went totally differently. So I think that's really cool that you have the actual like data to say this is what changed, or this is what is changing or was changing.
Yeah.
You also said, I remember something about like, because you tracked more things than just your heart rate and your sleep. You at some point said that when you spent time with your friends, that changed something. I don't know if it was the heart rate, what it was, but
Absolutely. And this keeps on happening, and there are many anecdotes I can tell you about. One is, for example, alcohol is bad, right? And you can measure it. You can drink something at night, and it will disrupt your REM phase, your deep sleep. It will increase your heart rate during the night, and then you really can measure it. But if you couple it, if you are usually on your own or with your partner, as I am here in the Czech Republic, and then you are lacking a bit of this social life, when we go to Spain, for example, or even to Prague and spend a weekend with friends, even if we have alcohol that night, like a beer, I mean, I never go beyond that, but a beer or a glass of wine, the effect is like buffered. It's like it doesn't work. It doesn't affect you as much. And I truly think it's because we require this social life. We need it for our health. And this I had felt a lot during the pandemic, and it affected me a lot. Having social life can help you recover much faster than almost anything else. Like of course you have to keep the basic, good sleep, good feeding, and you have to eat well, but social life is up there. It can help you reset much faster. So yeah, and yeah, I do measure social. Have I talked to a three-dimensional person today, not only on a screen? And then you can see differences.
You have a line on your sheet which is 3-dimensional human being conversation. 12 minutes.
I don't remember the name of the variable, but it's something like that. Yes. Real people. Yes, no.
I guess at the end of it oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go on, Christy, please. Yeah.
I was just going to say, like, we're still human, despite all these things that we do, and we regulate our stress, our emotions, our well-being with other people. So it's not surprising that would buffer your overall state. And I imagine that's something we don't really think about so much. Like how much human connection have I had in my work week?
It's massive. It's massive, the effect. So yeah, full on. This is something to keep in mind in this remote environment. Like teams have to get together to make it a bit better.
Just muting for a cough. Happy New Year. It's funny how I was going to say, like, you track sort of day-to-day, minute-to-minute, sort of hour-to-hour, like what's going on using monitors and sheets and stuff like that. And I guess I have a smartwatch too that kind of does all that sort of stuff. I don't look at it too carefully, but it's there if I need that. But one thing I've used in life, and I've talked about it before, like a tool, is like an annual diary. We talked about it on the podcast, and I share emails about it every year, encouraging people to do it. Because I really stand by the usefulness of that, like once a year sitting down and trying to kind of record and like measure as much as you can from the previous year, and then compare that against previous years and try and spot trends and changes over time. I've done that for my career, like marks out of 10 for how happy I am in my job. Marks out of 10 for how happy I am in my life more generally, and so on. 1 second. Oh, suffering from a cold. And I think, like, month to month, I wouldn't really spot the trends and the changes, but it's helped me at least a few times in my life to say, look, this job isn't working out for me. I've been in it for X years now, and it started out as an 8 out of 10, and it's now a 5 out of 10, and next year it's probably going to be a 4. And actually, it's that frog in hot water, like you were saying. You put a frog into cold water and heat it up, it was staying a long time, much longer than if you dropped a frog straight into that hot water at that temperature. Like, we just don't realize what our new normal is, and it shouldn't be normal. This isn't right. Yeah, we should do something about it. But there's got to be sort of a moment of acknowledgement and recognizing that this is wrong. And if you can measure it, if you can quantify it, if you can compare it and contrast it, it's got to sort of help for it. And it has me, and it sounds like it has you as well.
Yeah. The best way to, the best tool, just to keep track, even for any change you want to do in life. Like, sometimes people wanting to lose weight, for example, just measure what you eat every day or how many times you go to the fridge. And that makes you look at it and this is the third time today. Maybe I have to stop. But the same for anything, but especially for this. I also write a bit of a diary in the morning, just some thought pages, just brain dump in the morning. And I've used those this past months to track what I was writing and to see those trends. And it's not a year review, but this is like multi-year review. Well, let's look at the old notebooks and see trends here and write things down and see how we can improve.
When you're writing, are you like consciously trying to sort of diarize what's going on, or are you doing like free form writing where you're just letting your thoughts wander and you're sort of capturing it and just letting it out your head and capturing it onto paper so you don't have to think about it anymore? Like, how structured is that process for you?
I've tried many things, following things I read online or things like that, or what I need at the moment. And at the moment, it's pretty free form. It's just brain dump, or something happened yesterday that is fun, and I round it with a circle, and very often it's roughly some tasks that I want to accomplish that day or during the week, or I do a little planning and then I do it better later in the computer, something I don't want to miss. But usually it's just free form diary. Something I use because it's just fun is I try to think what might look interesting for the 10-year me. When I'm 10 years, I open that notebook. What will I like to know? What it was like when, I don't know, when I was living in the Czech Republic. So some things from day to day, like notes to my future self. This I do sometimes for fun. I don't know how helpful that is for burnout, but
I think that's really cool because, I mean, we all have, I believe that we all know. We know in our bodies when something's off.
yeah.
But the problem is that we either don't sense that, like we're not attuned to it for many reasons, or we've normalized it, or we choose just to bypass it, like not to notice that at all. And so by writing, you're kind of accessing the part of you that knows what's going on. I don't know if that happens for you. That happens for me. When I write, it's much easier for me to just go through and process whatever it is I'm not processing or not allowing myself to feel or experience in everyday life. And then suddenly on paper, it's like, oh yeah. That's what it is.
It makes you stop and think, not go automatic mode as we usually go.
There's this concept of like elephant and rider that I've heard about and read about, whereby, like the subconscious is the elephant. It's the big, hungry beast that just kind of drives forward and actually creates a lot of your feelings and emotion and everything that's going on. And the rider is your conscious that's trying to control this kind of beast that's underneath you. And maybe the journal is about, bringing the subconscious conscious and actually sort of recognizing it and appreciating it's there. Sort of related to that, the one thing actually in terms of like things I've done in the past when I've needed to, is I started a journal also, but it's a very structured journal. And I bought it from Amazon. It's called, I think it's called the 5-minute journal, or the 5-minute diary it's called. And it literally takes 5 minutes, no more. And you do like 3 minutes in the morning, 2 minutes in the evening. So when you wake up in the morning, open the journal, it asks you the same questions every day, pretty much. I can't remember them exactly, but the first 3 questions are like, what 3 things would make today amazing? And so you have to sort of just take a moment to kind of think through, okay, if this happens, if I do that, and it can be very small things like I enjoy a nice cup of coffee in the sun or whatever it might be. Just try and find things that kind of give you intent for the day, which I think really helps. And then there's some affirmations that I am. You say I am, and whatever you want to be, you just say I am. And it's about kind of, again, sort of setting and creating that almost persona for yourself as to who you want to be and becoming that person over time by affirming it every day. And at the end of the day, you sort of loop back and say, what 3 amazing things happened today? And what one thing could I have done to make today better? And it's just sort of learning lessons a little bit. And I've done that when, I've been going through kind of rough times, if you like. And I find it really helpful, really positive. And just even the intention setting for the day, like it's quite hard to think every day 3 different things that are going to make today good, and you sort of get quite granular about it. But it does make you want to do those things once you've written them down. It does kind of point you in the right direction.
Prompting yourself. So this is quite neat. You can also choose by periods. Okay, in this period, I would like to prompt myself every morning to check this or to do a personal experiment on what if I change this thing, will it affect this other thing? You can use every week for something or creating new habits.
Like a little hypothesis and a test.
Yeah.
Nick, did you have an experience, whether or not you call it burnout, where you made a shift, like you noticed something was off and you changed it?
Yeah, kind of. And I guess I'm sort of happy to share it too. Like, a couple of years ago, so I think it was 2021, 22, something like that. So after COVID and all that sort of stuff, there was a moment of clarity for me where I realized things weren't quite right. And I was out fishing, like in one of my favorite fishing spots, which I'm actually going to tomorrow, all being well. Beautiful bit of river. It was the middle of summer. It was glorious sunshine. It must have been like June, July, something like that. And I was sort of sat by the river in a great spot, hoping for some nice fish that I've not caught before from this particular location. And everything was right in the world. I thought this is just nice. This is great. And I remember thinking to myself, like, so why am I not happy? Like, yeah, I'm not happy. Like, why am I not happy right now? I should be. I'm in my happy place, doing my happy thing, and I'm not. And I sort of sat there for a while, kind of questioning why this might be, and then I asked myself a deeper question, which is, am I depressed? And I started thinking about that for a while. I think actually, I've not been happy for a while now for various reasons, and yeah, I don't know. Maybe I am depressed. It does run in my family, and I know people who have had depression, and and maybe objectively that's what I am right now. I don't know. So I did the thing you shouldn't do, jumped on the internet, went to Google, typed in "Am I depressed?" on the riverbank, and found like a questionnaire you can kind of do online. And I mean, long story short, I think you get like marks out of 21, and the higher the mark, the more depressed you are. I was like an 18, I was kind of right sort of up there really. And it kind of hit me like a stone. Like I think just the recognition, the sudden recognition that I'm not happy and I might be depressed here. And signs are kind of going that direction. Yeah, it was kind of a real like, I don't know. I wouldn't say like a turning point, but it's a real kind of, a moment of clarity for me that, okay, hang on. Yes, I'm not happy. Yes, there's something wrong. I can probably give it a label and that would probably be useful. And I can do something about that. Yeah. So I spoke to the doctor and was referred. And I got some medication for it too. And sought help as well, like talking to, a therapist. And I have to say, like, the thing that really helped me most was just recognizing it. I think just realizing it was happening. Like you, Nando, recognizing when it went and you felt better and looking back at all that. That was like my moment of, something's wrong here and I can do something about it. Until that moment, I just didn't really know there was something wrong, really. I hadn't acknowledged it. I was the frog in the hot water. What helped me most it was recognizing and sort of taking control of it. Like it's exercise helped a huge amount, I think, just kind of getting out, not working so hard, going for a few more runs, meeting up with a few more friends, like taking it easier on myself. I'd say I took medication. That didn't help with me personally. It made me more depressed, thinking that I had to take a pill to feel better.
Yeah.
It just didn't sit. I mean, obviously it's right for lots of people. It wasn't, I found it made
was
me
the
worse.
brown placebo effect, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So anyway, so I consciously stopped that and decided to do things another way. And time's a great healer. So things are fine now and have been for a long time. But it was definitely a low. It was just a low in my life, and it was quite hard to recognize it at the time. But yeah, definitely good to kind of work through it. But it does make you realize you've got to kind of look and listen to yourself a little bit and look after yourself, and yeah, and find ways to make things better. So I say exercise for me, so being social, I definitely find fresh air and sunshine and all that sort of stuff, and not sitting behind a desk and just finding reasons to go out hugely help. And I think going out early in the day helps rather than late in the day, like doing something first thing. It makes like intention setting for the day or something like that. Setting the day up right. If I can go for a run first thing, I don't do that very often, but if I can, that's great. But if not, then just going out for like a short walk is really good. I think it really kind of just calms you. Actually, meditation is another thing we've not really mentioned, but I quite enjoy meditation first thing in the morning. I don't do it as often as I should, but when I do, again, 5-10 minutes is enough. It just starts the day calm and sort of centered, for want of a better word, and yeah, feeling kind of in control and happy and comfortable and confident and everything that you want. Yeah, I think that has definitely been, and I just watch a YouTube video and just listen to that. It's dead easy to do. So yeah.
And
So
you
yeah,
manage to do it when do you manage to meditate when you have a lot of things to do? Because I think that's the main problem. It's like we tend to meditate only when we have the time for it.
Yeah. I think, yeah, again, it's like when things are bad, that's when I need it the most. So it's
Then you don't
being
know.
kind of conscious enough of that. Yeah. Again, someone that I know, and actually, so it's Carrie who's going to be on the podcast quite soon. Actually, she's doing an event for us around meeting culture and things like that. And I did a training event a while ago where she talked about burnout that she'd had an experience too, and she had a coach helping at the time, and the coach would just like check in randomly now and again, just phone her out the blue and say, how are things, just to kind of just give her that accountability in the moment. And she said she remember once, like, getting a call from him saying, how are you getting on, have you done your 5-minute meditation today? No, I haven't. I'm too busy, I've got this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, someone says if you're too busy and too stressed to do 5 minutes of meditation, you should do a 1 hour meditation. Do you know what I mean? It's that moment of actually, you need it more than ever. Like right now, when you're really busy is when you actually need it most. And there's something to be said for just acknowledging the craziness and actually holding on to what you need most in those moments. Yeah, which might be that. Yeah, it might not just a walk or a cup of tea, but it might be something a bit more as well.
I think I can't quite remember because we were originally going to record this podcast last year. And then I got sick. But when I was researching burnout for the podcast, and you look at the actual, like the symptoms, the list of symptoms and the phases and stuff, I think that's in there. Like when you're at the point where the way you take care of yourself is starting to drop off, you're exercising less, you're eating differently, you're sleeping differently. You're at the phase where, yeah, you need that the most. But when things start to get bad, that's what goes. We stop doing all the self-care that we would just normally routinely do in our lives.
Yeah.
Chris, have you ever felt like you've kind of gone over the edge and burnt out, or however you might describe it? Because obviously we know each other for a long time, and I think you have a tendency to work really hard. That seems to be built into your DNA. And we're often sort of reining you in and saying, stick with the ground, whatever. But I wonder, like, yeah, is there anything you want to share around that?
I don't know if I can compete with Nando over here, but
it's not
yeah, I think I have a strong tendency to work hard and work a lot. And sometimes for really good reasons, sometimes for maybe less good reasons. And I think I'm also really a bit stubborn. So like I always looked out for burnout as this like the breaking point almost, because I would hear and see other people who were a few steps further in their career than me hit that point where like something they couldn't go anymore. And they had to stop working, they had to be hospitalized, they had to quit their job, you know, like something dramatic happened. And so I was always conscious that that was possible, and that I was kind of, you know, that could happen to me too. But I never really considered that burnout is a whole process that plays out, you know, it might play out over weeks or months or years, and you go through phases of it. So I think I've always been really stubborn, as I am, to like not hit the breaking point, but that means that I've come very close on more than one occasion. Maybe the best example is when, so I was working in a context where I was really isolated. So I was physically isolated. I was in the jungle, and like a day and a half away from people. Nando knows exactly where I was. But I think more importantly than that, I was isolated in the sense that the role I was in, I was supervising other people, and so I couldn't be open fully with those people. And I also didn't have like a boss or a someone I could go to within the organization for support. Like it just wasn't either sort of appropriate or safe to do so. And I couldn't contact like my friends or family outside because of where I was. So I think that being in that environment, like if there was the stress of the work and all sorts of stuff and super, super long hours. But I think on reflection, it was, I wasn't able to like connect to myself, connect to other people for support. And I think if I'm learning anything like from thinking about this topic and thinking about what I went through, it's that we're kind of taught not to we're taught not to feel the feelings. So like when something's wrong, we immediately go, okay, but everyone else is doing this and they're okay.
Yeah.
On the outside, they're okay. So what's going on with me? Like I'm gonna deal with this thing too. And I'm gonna keep going. There's I don't know if either of you guys or if anyone watching, listening has read this. There's a book by two sisters called Burnout. And they talk about this, having to complete the stress cycle. It's fascinating because what that helped me realize is like, I don't go through that. You know, I come from a Canadian culture where you just don't like talk about your feelings and you don't go through that process. And so when something's wrong, you keep going. But they talk about like, you have to, as any animal does, it experiences a stressor and then it experiences a response, stress. And then it either dies, it gets eaten, it runs, whatever, but then it has to finish it and like shake it off and know that it's okay again. And we don't normally do that. And I haven't normally done that in my, no one taught me to do that in my work and my career. So I think like, that's a key thing I'm learning is like, you have to be able to recognize when you're stressed. And then at some point you have to go through it and come to the completion point where you feel like stable and safe again. And if you don't do that, there's a lot of research saying that stuff stays in your body, like physically in your body, and can make you sick. So I found that I recommend like going and listening to one of their podcasts or having a read. It's super fascinating stuff. And I think it's really useful.
Is there anything you do? Christy, is there anything you do nowadays to detect that or to keep track of that?
Not to keep track of it necessarily. I think some of the same things we talked about, like journaling for me is really good because I find it easier to go through and process in that form. Practically, I guess the other one we talked about too is connection, like being able to connect to myself, whether that's through writing, through dancing or something. Connecting to other people can have a huge impact, especially when we do this, when we work remotely. And I do it, it's just me here. So it's not like I sort of walk away from the screen and like go talk to, my friend or family or partner or whatever, like, this happened. It all stays inside. So I have to let it out somewhere. Yeah, and then practically like exercise, I need a ton of exercise. And dancing are ways that I kind of regulate it the most. If I get a lot of that, then it buffers me a lot more.
It's interesting what you said about like when you're kind of suffering from stress, if you like, and you see everyone else kind of coping and think, well, they can do it, and why can't I do it? I wonder if the reality is they're also thinking the same about you, and everyone's thinking the same about everyone else, and it's almost like a collective, almost like acceptance of this, and actually nobody wants it,
I think so. I think personally that I think there's a tendency when there's burnout, like we either look at the person like, oh, you didn't manage yourself well, or we look at the organization or the employer or the boss and we're like, they didn't manage something well. But I think we all live in a context of it's never enough. It's never good enough. We always need more. We need it faster. We need to do more, especially in conservation, because we're like having the feeling of racing against the clock, literally, to save things. So there's always something that's not good enough, that's wrong, that needs to be better. And all of us, organizations, ourselves, our colleagues are in that way of thinking. And so, yeah, I think we get almost conditioned into that from when we're young. But I think it's like this conversation is super interesting to hear your experience, Nando, hear yours, Nick, because from the outside, maybe we would have noticed for you, Nando, because you physically stopped and you went on a cycling trip. Like for Nick, we wouldn't know from the outside. No one looking at you would necessarily know what was going on internally for you. So it's really easy for us to make up stories that everyone else is just fine.
I think there's a lot to be said about culture as well, like within organizations. I think every employer is different, and some organizations are probably more prone to burnout because of the way that people tend to work, and people tend to work in ways similar to their co-workers. So if everyone's working really late and working at weekends and in the mornings and whatever, you feel a lot of pressure to do the same. And if you don't, you feel like you're standing out differently. And, again, it's hard to work against that, but it needs to kind of go back the other way. And I think some of that needs to come from the top and the leaders and actually show leading by example. I think a CEO who doesn't work hugely long hours and does have a family and a social life and everything, and makes sure that their co-workers know that that's what's happening, just sets a nice example for others. You need to be really careful.
I'm thinking of all the conversations we've had, Nick, where you're like, I don't expect you to work more hours here.
No, I'm not. On a different note, though, I was going to ask also, Christy, like where we're talking, like you're a dancer and like you love dancing and movement of your body and that sort of stuff. Have you ever noticed like stress physically in your body as you try and dance and move? Because I don't have that. So how does it manifest for you in terms of what you can do?
When I get stressed, the first place I feel it is in my stomach and my gut. And my stomach will actually be like, it will often be physically bloated. So if you see me when I'm stress-free, my stomach will be flat. And unless I've eaten something, weird or whatever, like if I'm stressed, it will expand. Super noticeable for me. And the second place is in my back, like my upper back, which is in part from sitting at a computer, but it's also stress related. Yeah. But this is a bit of a tangent, but maybe it's related. I've learned this from working and knowing other cultures, like Spanish culture, Brazilian culture, where people like Brazilians, if something doesn't feel right in their body, you'll know, because they will tell you, oh, my arm is like, it feels really heavy. It's bothering me today. And the first time I heard this, I thought, like, who are these people? Like, they're complaining about the smallest things. And it took me a long time to realize that actually, no, they just feel it. Like, and these are, I grew up in a culture where it's not okay to to complain about that kind of stuff, and to the point where we don't actually even notice when something's off. And like most Brazilians will just know right away. I'm kind of putting the whole of Brazilian culture into a category here. So just
That's super interesting.
Right. But that's something I've only learned from being in and around other cultures. And it comes back to the, like, you have to be able to feel it to know that something's off.
Yeah, first step. Yeah.
For everybody.
That's super interesting. Yeah. I don't think I've ever had a flat stomach either, so maybe I'm constantly stressed.
Yeah, it's stress. Definitely.
It's just stress. That's all it is. I'm carrying some stress down there. Yeah.
But I think, like, I know this is a dancer, but I imagine if you're like a musician, anyone who does any kind of like creative project or any activity where you need to be like fully present, you know when you're not.
Yeah.
It's very obvious because you can't perform the thing the way you normally would.
Yeah. And I guess there's been an explosion like sports psychologists in recent years, like people helping the mental side of sport. You can train physically and be ready for the event, but if your head's not there, you won't perform. And that's something that it's really come to the fore.
Nando, do you feel in your body? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just thought of this thing. I haven't tested it myself, but when you train stretching, they say that your body is able to stretch a lot more and quite perfectly. It can stretch almost all the way, but it's your brain that prevents the stretching from going forward, just for protection. And then you are training your brain, not your muscle or your tendons to be more flexible. And that shocked me, like, wow, so the limit is in your brain.
Yeah, there's because that goes for like physical strength too. I forget the word for it, but like people who do things that seem impossible, that they can physically do, like lifting an insanely heavy object. And again, it's the mental bit that protects you, that sets your limit. It's wild.
I guess that's part of it for sure.
Yeah, I felt like I'm not very flexible at all. But sometimes, like if I like stretch or something in the gym, they sort of say stretch, lean, try and touch your toes. I can get like halfway down my shins. But if you just let it and just try and consciously relax, like try and let it go, I can definitely get a few more inches, because I was holding back, just like you were saying, then like holding the tension because I'm trying to sort of protect from the pain. But actually, by relaxing, the pain kind of goes. It's weird, isn't it? Yeah, I guess
you need to write it in your morning affirmations. And then test it.
I am flexible.
I will be more flexible today.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, has anyone got any like final thoughts or things they want to share before we kind of wrap up? Because I think it's been a really, really insightful chat. I've really enjoyed it. We've covered a lot of ground. We've talked a bit about the sort of signs and symptoms and causes and some of our solutions. But is there anything kind of that we felt like we didn't touch on that we'd like to?
Yeah, we have been mixing a bit the solutions with the symptoms, but I was thinking something interesting for people will be the topic of the sabbatical, which is something. My thing is not what I'm trying is not quite a proper sabbatical, I will say, because I'm doing many other things and working from time to time, but I've been reading about it and thinking, how should I do a sabbatical if I could do it? And what should I do? Should I plan it? Should I not plan it? Should I just see or read? And then there are interesting TED Talks about it, like from this designer. I wrote it down here. Stefan Sagmeister is German. And then at some point, he decided that he was going to take breaks every 5 years or something like that, every 7 years, to recover a bit his creativity. And being a German, his reasoning was, okay, if I plan to retire at 65 and then have maybe 15 years to 80, I could instead decide to push that retirement to 70 and then take those 5 years and have them now intercalated speed in these years now.
Nice.
And then I will use them much better, probably, because it's more quality life. And that was this reasoning. Also, this Tim Ferriss with his micro retirements, this feeling. I think we should get more of this embedded in our society, because it can help a lot. Yeah. This resetting, and there was another example I read somewhere that was also impressive. That in the First World War, Germany got defeated, and then they had to dismantle their army completely. And perhaps that was the reason that in the Second World War, they had to start, they had a new army from the scratch. They had the newest technology, they had the new designs for everything. And that gave them an edge for some time. Whereas the British, for example, you guys had to take cannons from museums at some point. This is something I read. Don't trust me, I'm not a historian.
It wasn't me personally.
But it was so interesting to read this, and then this has been applied to companies now. They were, for example, the budgets now they are told to start from scratch, because you have to think every step and see which things you can improve. So having a full reset can be more work in the moment, but it can be very beneficial further on, like this. So this is, I don't know, there are many things, and you can scratch a bit and watch the talks and Google a bit on this, because you can get many new pearls and benefits.
We had a community catch up the other day of people from within CC Pro, and we had, I don't know, 10, 15 or so people on the call, really good call. And 3 or 4 of them were switchers who recently have quit their jobs and are consciously taking a career break. They're just letting some dust settle, taking some time just to think and reflect and to sort of regroup before, re-entering their career in perhaps a new direction, having taken that time and space to kind of consider things more fully. It's easy just to stay on the conveyor belt, isn't it? And not kind of get off it for a little bit of time and kind of use that to your benefit. Are you consciously trying to think about whether a sabbatical is right for you at the moment, Nando?
Yeah. I'm trying to. I mean, for me, it's basically a strategy also to reduce the number of options and try to make time for any potential for new opportunities that can come. I talk a lot every week with startups and companies and people, and it's super interesting, and they offer you new adventures, and we could do this, we could do that, and it's all very tempting, and I'm consciously pausing and keeping on pausing, and I'm trying to choose only small missions. I'm waiting for one now to go and do some otter tracking in Austria, which will be 10 days, and this helps. Of course, this is money is something we have to think about, and not just stop doing everything, and of course it's not everyone has the luxury of taking time off like this, but if you can, then choosing very carefully what your next adventure is going to be, and where. This is something I felt a lot last year, that I was so spread. I had so many things. I was working so much for other people's mission that I couldn't really carve my place there. I couldn't really make my best work. I couldn't do my best work because I wasn't able to carve the time to really decide what I wanted to do. And now I can really choose. I'm having a very big overview and then waiting for the right opportunity. Where can I put all my power, right? Like if it works with little projects, if you can more or less survive having 4 jobs, what will happen when you have only one and you focus your power there? Then I'm very curious to see where that goes. I always have to keep many little projects to be happy. I noticed that, but imagine if you can wait. Now I put full power on this. So I'm actively waiting for that opportunity. Living the space.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think like one keyword that jumps out from a lot of our conversation today is like control. It feels like a lot of the stress and strains of life have come because of a lack of control and being beholden to someone else's deadline or someone else's organization or whatever it might be, and taking that time and taking back control and consciously deciding what you want to do before you engage. Yeah. And the only thing I kind of hear listening to you, Nando, like is you're now waiting for opportunities to come along, which obviously you have to as a kind of freelancer as you work. But I wonder if you can also be creating some of those opportunities as well, like in terms of if you decided what you want to do, can you then create the opportunities to do it rather than hoping for the right opportunities to drop in, if you know what I mean, like having an even more proactive approach. That's all that comes to my mind when I listen. Yeah.
It's absolutely that. I'm working on my projects, but they are projects that I can stop. They are my deadlines. They are my So for the right opportunity, I will maybe stop. But I'm saying no and continue my muses, my little projects, and we have a lot of analysis to do and things and all papers, and it's working like that, and also these little missions. But this is the good part, right? That you can say, okay, now, for example, next week I'm going to do a little Erasmus, and I'm going to study for 2 weeks Czech full time in Brno.
Yeah.
So this is something fantastic that I can do just because I have this flexibility now, and I can stop everything and just kickstart my Czech, which I need now. I really, it's one of the New Year's resolution. So this freedom is fantastic. But then if at any moment in one of these conversations the right fit appears, then I'm ready to pull the plug and and go for it. So yeah, I'm actively working on myself, but letting a space for any random type to lack to appear.
You've got like a better filter for when opportunities come along to say yes. These ones suit what I want, and you can turn things down more easily.
If it fits with the with the superpowers.
I
can't stop myself from picturing you like adventuring the Amazon and on ships in the Arctic, and like the explore your explorer side combined with
we have to balance that part. It was sorely missed.
I love the bit about sabbatical too. I was thinking like I think when anyone goes through any phase of burnout or low, there's kind of like a cost we have to pay for that, if that makes sense. It sounds really negative, but it's like if you sleep 3 hours in a night, like you're going to have to come back up from that place. So I think like proactively scheduling time, whether it's a sabbatical every 5 years or whether it's like the time off in a year, it's so much better to plan for that than to like let it get really bad and pay for it later, like almost paying for the stress that you've experienced, because that stress is there. It's cumulative. Like if you read the Burnout book or listen to the Nagoski sisters talk about it, there's that cumulative stress that builds up over time. So I like that idea of like, well, what if instead of letting that happen,
like trying to stop a truck. You have this inertia, and it's also I thought about this too, that I was lucky that I had scheduled the bike trip just after all of this and all the deadlines and everything, because it didn't allow me to get to a computer. I guess if I had stayed at home, I would have continued with the inertia. I have to log in. I have to reply to the emails. I have to do a thing. But as I left for almost 4 weeks, when I came back, I remember telling you, maybe you, Christy, or Nick, or both, I remember telling you, it's amazing. I came home and I didn't turn on the computer for yet another week. It was impressive, and it's a realization that nothing happens. Like
the sky doesn't fall in; it's still there, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, well, on that hugely positive note then of looking forwards and hoping that we have a great 2024 collectively, and who knows where we'll be by this time next year. Yeah, thanks both for kind of jumping on the chat and sharing your thoughts. And I found it a really insightful, thoughtful conversation. I hope you listeners have also enjoyed, some of the chat too. If you do have any thoughts, I'm always open to hearing them as well. You can always connect to us via social. You can send us an email. We kind of love to hear them. One thing we've started actually in CC Pro, I'll mention it, we do these Wellness Wednesdays now, which is quite a nice thing where every Wednesday we share like one short, quick, simple thing that anyone can do just to try and improve their well-being, whether it's, go for a walk or do a yoga stretch or do some kind of controlled breathing exercise, whatever it might be. And they're generated by the community for the community. And I'm finding that really quite nice, actually. I'm learning kind of some new things and have some kind of hints and tips to kind of to pick up for myself from that. So that's been really fun. But yeah, thank you guys for joining. Here's to a good new year, and hopefully it won't be another however long it is, 6-8 months since we chat again as a 3.
Yes,
this has been a good way to start the year.
Yeah,
let's meet again soon and have another chat.
Yes.
That's good. And maybe we can talk sabbaticals or something else. Who knows what? Yeah, we can
part 2.
Part 2. Yeah. All right. Thanks again, guys. You take care. And thanks again, everyone, for listening.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that, everyone. If you did, then please do hit the subscribe button to get notified of new episodes as they drop. And also, please give us a rating or a review because it really helps us to get in front of more people, and we really enjoy reading them all. As you'll have heard, our podcasts are now recorded in front of a live audience who sit in and listen to the chat, and then after the mics are turned off, they get a chance to talk to the host, to share their thoughts, and also to ask questions. It's a really great format. If you'd like to be in the audience, all you need to do is join the Conservation Careers Academy. Now, in the Conservation Careers Academy, you'll get full access to the world's biggest conservation job board, listing over 15,000 jobs, volunteer and internships across the globe each year. You'll also enjoy access to our amazing CC Pro private members community with regular events, networking and support. Plus, you'll get full access to our growing library of career boosting resources, guides and templates. And best of all, it only costs a few dollars, euros or pounds per month to join the Academy. Now, to find out more, please visit conservation-careers.com/academy or simply click the join button at the top of our website. See you on the inside.